Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. I might be ready to talk football now after we spend some time talking about Mythbusters and what is Clancy Brown's most iconic roles.
Yep, and a lot of fantasy football. I think we might have done the framed this time. Oh, no, actually, no, we didn't do the framed this time. Oftentimes we do the framed before, and sometimes we'll do work on the spell bee a little bit as well. I did. I got Snow White on like the fourth one, I think. Spoiler alert if you do the framed puzzle game each. One. Okay, all right, fair enough. I was like, could be Cinderella, could be Sleeping Beauty.
You got to know your castle. You got to know your Disney castles a little better.
I guess I do. I guess I do. They
got to brush up on those Disney castles.
But anyway, yeah. So we usually end up starting about 30 to an hour after we actually get on the call. But anyway, we are here today to discuss some of our takeaways from the Packers' last preseason game against the Colts. None of the starters really played. I think the Packers had 30-ish players, 20-ish players not playing.
Like that.
It was some very large number not playing.
The roster didn't play.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just the players that we do have takeaways from. We're going to talk a little bit about, looking forward to the 53-man roster in terms of, who we're projecting, because this time next week we will have our answers on who is making the 53 for the Packers. I think you and I both put them together, and I think we're pretty close. I feel like this year more than others, it's been less difficult to pick out an exact 53. Maybe that's with just more, still the youngest roster in the league probably, but a little bit more experience and a little bit more knowledge about which players are which and who fits where. We're going to talk about that Colts game. We're going to talk about the 53-man roster. Before we get into any of that, though, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a stranger on the street, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Subscribe on all of them, leave a review. Leave a comment.
In a soapbox with a sawhorse over here saying that Father-Son Packers podcast is coming soon.
Yeah, print out a shirt, wear it around, answer questions when people ask about the shirt, point at the shirt. But anyway,
follow us. Create some merch that we like, let us know.
Yeah, sure. Follow us on Blue Sky at Father-Son Packer for updates on when we have new episodes out. Updates on, Packers roster moves, injury reports, one-stop shop and everything Titletown. So check us out there. Subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. We love comments on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. We love responding to those. We love interacting with the rest of the Packers community because it is the best fan base in the world. So yeah, let it, just come interact with us. We love talking ball with anyone and everyone. But before we get into talking about, the game against the Colts and the upcoming 53-man roster cutdowns, we do have a little bit of news to touch on. And let's start off with a few roster moves. So the Packers have added a couple players on defense. Defensive lineman Devontae O'Malley and then defensive back Jalen Simpson have both been signed. And then corner Garnett Hollis Jr. was released, and then defensive lineman Keith Randolph was waived injured. So a few moves there. And then speaking of injuries, we do have a couple bit of news items on the injury report. From the game, we had a few new injuries to touch on. All three are expected to miss some time, according to Matt LaFleur. That's Marshawn Lloyd, again with a hamstring injury, which really, sucks for him because it was on that, he had a big explosive play on that catch, kind of like a wheel up the right sideline, and then just kind of got tackled oddly from behind, a little awkwardly. So he's going to miss some time with a hamstring injury. Baron Sorrell, knee injury, sprained his MCL and should miss a few weeks per Rob Domofsky. That was on I think it was a punt. It was on a kick. It was on a special teams play very early in the game.
Play. I forget exactly whether somebody rolled into him.
And then most concerning was Omar Brown with a chest contusion / lung issue. He actually stayed in Indianapolis for a few days. He's still in the hospital there. So well wishes out to him and his family. But it sounds like he's going to be
left the field on with oxygen when they carted him off, is what I read. And I'm not surprised he's still in the hospital. My guess, so this is totally uninformed opinion, is maybe he has a collapsed lung.
Yeah.
And having had one, you need to be hooked up to the vacuum in the hospital for several days for the lung to heal before, so you stop having air accumulate inside your chest cavity.
Yeah, but so hopefully everything's going to be okay with him. It sounds like, there's no super long-term concerns, but he is still in the hospital. So well wishes out to him. Some new injuries reported in Monday practice. These didn't necessarily happen during the game, but it was Aaron Banks with a back injury and then Jacob Monk with a hamstring injury. They were also both missing from Tuesday practice. Now, Kenny Clark and Lucas Van Ness also missed Monday's practice with back injuries, but they were back. They returned, I guess, and so I don't keep using the same word, but they returned on Tuesday, so that's at least some good news there. And then some other players, Savion Williams with a hamstring, Zane Anderson with the knee, Xavier McKinney with the calf, but he did start working on the side Monday and Tuesday, so that's some good news there at least. Jaden Reed with the foot injury still, although he's out of the boot, so that's some good news. Dontavian Wicks with the calf. According to Tom Silverstein, he and Reed were catching balls from Love after practice, but not running routes, so maybe some progress there. And then Nate Hobbs still with that knee injury. And then we did also, I think, see that Sorrell and Lloyd were working off to the side today. So I think that's at least a step in the right direction for them as well.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Lloyd was already out there, and so were Monk, Lloyd, Sorrell, and Savion Williams were all working on the side.
Today. Monk and Savion Williams as well. So that's also some good news. Monk's did look awkward. I saw it in the all 22 from the end zone angle. He just gets kind of stuck, and then a guy falls on him, and he falls into the splits, and it looked awkward, and then he didn't come back in. So good to see him at least moving around, though, off to the side at least. Love did return to practice on Monday, so that's probably the biggest news, and he practiced Monday and Tuesday. They're just doing 7-on-7s. He's not taking snaps under center right now. He's just picking the ball up off a stool to simulate a snap. But he is out there throwing, so that's good. Dobbs came back to practice after sitting out the joint practice and the game, so that's also good news. Like I mentioned, LVN and Clark returned on Tuesday, and like we mentioned, Monk, Lloyd, Sorrell, and Savion also working off to the side. Dad, any thoughts on anything from the injury report that we touched on there, or is that we feel like we covered everything? I hope we can see Savion Williams back for one preseason game, just so he can get some reps under his belt. And then obviously, hopefully, Jordan Love can continue to recover from that thumb procedure, and get back to hopefully doing 11-on-11s at least a little bit before week 1. But obviously, we don't know exactly what the timetable is there, but it is good at least to see him back out there throwing the ball around at least.
Yeah. And be really nice to get Xavier McKinney back.
Oh yeah. Well,
on defense, yeah. It's nice to see him actually starting to do stuff. Calf is a little, worrisome, whether that turns into something more long-term. So it's easy back into it, and hopefully he's a full go by the time they play the first week, because I think he is the linchpin of the entire defense.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, he's arguably the best player on the team, full stop, either side of the ball. So yeah, I mean, important player to have back out there, for week 1. And, that's the most important thing, is having him there for week 1. So if he needs to take it easy the next week, 2 weeks, so be it. But anyway, I think we can go on to talking about the game against the Colts from this past weekend. Like we mentioned, most of the starters were not playing, and I think the only players who are really close to starters that were out there were Jordan Morgan playing left tackle, which we'll talk about in a second, and Sean Ryan playing center. So not exactly the position he would be playing at if it was week 1, probably. But, a player that we probably project to be in the top 5 of the offensive line. But am I missing anyone else of real consequence play? I mean, obviously, Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, if he can get healthy, those guys are going to play in the regular season. Brenton Cox, those guys are going to play in the regular season. But
yeah, Cox and Enagbare, kind of the 3 and 4 edge. So the next line, unless you mean Bo Melton, I suppose.
Yeah. So players who are going to play, but no real starters out there besides possibly Morgan and Ryan. But Dad, what was your first takeaway from this game? I think there are still some things we can glean, some things that are important to talk about. But what was your first one you wanted to touch on?
So I'll go right into the secondary secondary depth. A little slip there.
I was going to say we are losing members of the secondary bit by bit.
not quite that severely. But talk about Bo Melton is continuing to put up a fight for that fourth corner spot behind Nixon, Hobbs, and Valentine, leaving Bullard as kind of his own thing because he seems to be at least splitting time between safety and slot.
Yeah. Well, quick question on Bullard. Do you think I'm a little trepidatious, vocab word of the day, about him? He's losing so many snaps at slot that he kind of needs, because he's gonna be if McKinney and Williams are healthy, he's gonna be the slot guy.
And him be a repeat of last year where
he's just not getting the reps there in practice. I feel like that's kind of it's gonna be a little tough on him to have to go play in safety all preseasons. Okay, now you're back to slot corner. That just feels a little tough on him, don't you think?
Yeah, that will be a little tougher. Though it seems like their plan is have him in the slot when it's more of a running situation than a passing situation. The obvious passing downs, I think they've been putting Valentine in there and outside and Hobbs in the slot if everybody's healthy.
I was going to say if Hobbs is back. I think is the other thing there. But
yes, if Hobbs is not back, then he's like full-time slot.
Exactly, which is like if you're full-time slot and you're not getting any reps in the slot, it's a little dicey, right? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But anyway, sorry. Continue with the depth of the corners.
So basically, I have the battle for corner 4 and 5 being between like Melton, Valentine, Kalen King, Micah Robinson, and Kamal Hadden. So in this latest game, Melton had the highest coverage grade for the Packers, according to PFF, at 73.7. He only gave up 17 yards on 29 coverage snaps. And he had the only pass breakup amongst the corners. I think maybe Oladapo and maybe Hopper had a pass breakup. So one safety and one linebacker also had a PBU. So it was a big improvement over his coverage grade from preseason game 1, where he really struggled. In comparison, Hadden had a coverage grade of 35 and Ballantyne a coverage grade of 45. Hadden gave up 71 yards in 28 coverage snaps compared to, Melton's 17 on 29 coverage snaps. So a big difference there. And Ballantyne gave up 20 yards on 13 coverage snaps. So also more than 1 yard per coverage snap. Robinson and King, however, they gave up no reception in their coverage snaps, and they had 18 and 24 respectively. And Robinson had a good coverage grade, but King's was lower. Robinson's was 69. King's was 51. But King had the best coverage grade against the Jets. So there's it's pretty fluid here in terms of who's doing the best and what they're doing the best at.
Yeah, and Melton and Hadden got the start at corner. So they were like the first ones out there. I think Melton kind of has a spot on the team locked up, which is like a bit of spoiler for the 53, but just because he's also so important on special teams, and then in an emergency, he can play some wide receiver also, so like the more you can do. Hadden, it was his first game. I was like intrigued to see him play, but he didn't play great. And then Ballantyne
he had been out for a while.
Yeah, so like a bit of accident forgiveness there. We'll see how he looks in the next game. And then Ballantyne also didn't look great, but to be fair to him, it's like we kind of know what he can do. Like we've seen him do it at the NFL level before, so there's like a bit of like, okay, like it doesn't necessarily matter to me as much how he looks in the preseason because I've seen it. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's kind of how I feel about the corner room right now. Is I would go like Melton kind of has a spot locked, and then Hadden and Ballantyne and King are kind of fighting for that 5th spot. But I have Ballantyne ahead of them, not because of anything he's done in camp, but just because I've seen him play at the NFL level like before.
Which has kind of been my opinion as well, what I've been doing with him. I have him on the team as well. So then in comparison, though, Hadden had the best run defense grade.
I was going to say, also to be fair, I forgot to mention Micah Robinson, the draft pick from this year. He is also kind of, fighting for that 5th spot as well.
Yeah, he's in there, and he's had some good coverage.
He's been solid. Chances. He's been solid. That's why I wanted to make sure I mentioned him, because I had forgotten him, and I do think he deserves to have his name in that conversation.
Yeah, and he had I think maybe the second best coverage grade amongst the corners in the last preseason game. Now Hadden's had the best run defense grade of the corners, the grade of 74.6, and Melton had the worst run defense grade amongst the corner group.
Mm-hmm. I do feel like, in terms of the practices, we've been hearing Kalen King's name the most in terms of like making plays in one-on-ones and making plays with the 2s and 3s. So I don't know if that necessarily means anything.
He had the best coverage grade in week 1, and maybe a good one, and didn't give up any yards in the second one. Though his coverage grade wasn't as good, so maybe that means his guy was open. They just didn't. They just decided
not to throw it to him. I will say, like, if I had to pick today, I'd pick Ballantyne, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's any of the 4 of them. Like, I think that's like a total crapshoot. Yeah. And it might just come down to like which one they think they can get back to the practice squad.
That's often the case. It's not necessarily who the best is. That also means across positions.
Yeah. So
you might short a position because you're sure you're going to get somebody back. Even though you think that person's going to play more than the guy who makes the 53.
Exactly. But yeah, and then I see you had something about the safeties as well in here, since we're already talking about the secondary.
Cutdown Oladapo is continuing to look good. He had the second best coverage grade of the team. Gave up no receptions, had a pass breakup, and it had an okay run defense grade of 62. In this most recent game, and he's shown some good one-on-one reps we talked about last time in the joint practice. which is not something you necessarily see an extra large safety do.
Yeah, I mean, he was in really good coverage against Gold, against the Colts. And then the ball is just very, very well thrown balls, like really hard to, cover it any better than he did. But yeah, like for a guy who's bigger and, he's second year, 5th round pick. And a big part of the reason he was a 5th round pick was because he was going into the draft process with an injury. So it like talent wise, he probably could have gone higher. So that's like something to keep in mind when you think it's like, oh, it's just like a day 3 guy. It's like, well, he probably could have maybe gone near the top of day 3, maybe end of day 2 if he wasn't dealing with, I think it was a foot injury at the time. But so yeah, just something to keep in mind with him. Like he's a very talented player and he brings something to the safety room that they don't really have. Like he's just much bigger than the other safeties they've got.
Yeah, and a lot of people were high on him when they got him. They're like hoping, and I think I was hoping they would get him as another safety there late. And yeah, he could be important depth. We don't know how long Anderson's going to be out. We hope McKinney will be back at the start of the season. And if we want to play Bullard more in the slot, that means we need an extra safety who can get on the field. If we need Bullard in the slot and Oladapo in the field.
And I do wonder though, because they've been repping Oladapo in the slot a little bit. I wonder if it's only Williams, Bullard, Oladapo available. Like which one of Bullard and Oladapo play in the slot? It might just be Oladapo. They might him closer.
They might
be
testing it. Maybe that's what they're doing is, hey, does this work? Let's try this.
This is the time of year for trying stuff. Like that's what training.
And they might if he can hold up in some coverage, then we like him.
He's got size
for
too. He's got the size for run support and being near the line of scrimmage. Yeah, like because some people were speculating when he was coming out. It's like, oh, is he like? Could he play a little bit of like linebacker box safety stuff, like when as a bigger safety? But yeah, no, I totally agree that the secondary is going to be very interesting to see how it shakes out. Another position group that I think is going to be interesting how it shakes out, and really the one I was looking at the most in this game was the offensive line room. And I do want to start with Anthony Belton because he seems to be a bit of the big topic of conversation in this game was his play and his penalties. And I want to start with the penalties. I really don't particularly care that he had 5 penalties in the first half. So 2 of them were procedural, lined up incorrectly ones. Those to me don't really concern me because they're a very easy fix. And I don't foresee them being a problem in the future because and even Matt LaFleur mentioned sometimes that's actually on the guard because the guard lines up too far back. And then the tackle is basing where he lines up off of where the guard is lining up. So if the guard lines up too far back, then the tackle is going to line up too far back, and then the tackle is going to get the penalty. But so those 2 don't bother me that much. Then there's the false start. I feel like that's just kind of classic rookie, that just is what it is in a lot of ways. He's still learning the snap counts and stuff like that. That's going to happen.
He didn't know the snap count of that when he just jumped on the wrong count.
And then there was after the play, unnecessary roughness. You can't have those, obviously, in a real game.
Especially because the 15 yards is a killer.
Yes, but I like the mentality, playing through the whistle. And I think that's part of what the allure with him is that he is a very physical and violent player. You mean the
fact that he pancakes guys and then lays on them?
Yes. So obviously you just need to tone it down near the sideline a little bit, but that's not a hyper concern to me. That's for the long term. And then I think was the 5th one a hold? I can't remember. I think the 5th one might have been a hold.
There was there's only one that seemed to be actually associated with his job.
How he was playing, yeah. And then I went back and I watched every single play of his from the end zone angle, so from the back, and I watched every single play. And I will say, there were a few reps that were not good because they also had him giving up 5 pressures on the day. PFF did. I do think 2 of those were pretty late in the down. The quarterback was holding the ball for a while. And so I don't know necessarily yes, they're pressures and yes, they were his man that was getting there, but I don't know what he's not going to block for 10 seconds. He's not going to block for 5 whole seconds. That's not going to happen. There were 2 specifically where he just leaned forward way too much. And I think that that's something he's going to have to work on. I think that it seems like when I watch him, at least, his superpower is his size and his strength. And I do think he leans on that maybe a little bit too much sometimes, where it's he's oh, I should be shuffling my feet to the right. I should be moving with the guy, but I'm just going to try and get my hands on him and hold him up. And it works for him sometimes, but sometimes he's got his hands outside of his frame and he's trying to block the guy, but like at the NFL level, like you can't just rely on like I'm just gonna maul this guy with just like not as much tech. Like I'm not. You need to block with your feet and not with your hands. Is pretty much what I'm saying, and that's something he needs to work on. And he got caught leaning a few times where the guy pulled him, and then he blew one stunt that was like not great. The guy like really beat him on an inside move, and then he tried to follow him, and then didn't realize that the tackle was twisting around him, and it was like, that's a clean run to the quarterback.
Like running right into
Monk, I think it was, yeah. And then there was a run play at the goal line where the guy just, beat him off the ball and beat him inside, which can't happen. But I do think for the most part, he started the game really well. And then in the second quarter, it like was really rough for him. And then he came back out in the second half and had a good second half outside of that goal line play. And was it Rasheed Walker joked like, yeah, I talked to him at half and I gave him a Clementine and I told him just stick with it.
Was he getting angry?
I don't know. He said, and even Adam Stenavich in his press conference talked about how they really liked how Belton came out, because there's that clip of Matt LaFleur yelling at him as they're going to the locker room. And Stenavich mentioned that he liked how he came out in the second half and was like more focused and didn't have any penalties in the second half. But I do think he started the game quite well against the Colts starters and mostly held up against the starters for the Colts, which was impressive. I think most of his reps in pass protection and run blocking were pretty good outside of like 3 or 4. Which, he's going to have to work on. You can't have 3 to 4 lapses in a game. That's like not good. But it's his second game ever at the NFL level. And he's he's still developing as well. But so I think just overall, I think the consternation around his play feels a little overblown to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. And the fact that he was able to come back and have 0 penalties in the second half makes you feel like it's less of a problem than people were making it out to be.
The penalties are not a serious concern in my opinion. I'm not really worried about that at all. I'm more worried about the pressures given up, and even those to me, I feel like the way he like gave them up was very similar each time, and so it's like if he was losing in a bunch of different ways, that might be a little concerning to me. But
that's always concerning.
Yeah, but like the fact that he's losing in the same way, obviously not ideal, but it's like, okay, if he can clean this up, then we're good, But yeah.
So here's a question. Do you think he was caught leaning? Is he like trying to drive block somebody when he should be in pass pro?
No, I think
he just wants to push people down on the field.
I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like he's been like probably the strongest player every single place he's ever played. And so I think he's like, I just need to get my hands on this guy and like I'm going to win the rep. And so I think he's maybe a little over eager to get his hands on the guy. And so he's not he's too eager to like land that initial punch with them. Like he's trying to get contact and grab them and just like dominate them. And because when he gets his hands on the guy, he's not really losing. But so I think he's just like leaning forward when he's punching and he's getting a little over eager about trying to get his hands on the guy. Kind of is what I feel like. Yeah. But I think that's coachable. I think that'll be fine. But so I'm not super concerned about Belton. I know it wasn't a great performance. I'm not saying it was, but I'm just not that concerned about it. Moving down the offensive line, Jordan Morgan. I mean, he might just not be the left tackle of the future because he might be the left tackle of the present because this guy is kicking ass out there right now. A little misdirection for you. But I mean, back to back, just really great games at left tackle.
Yeah, no pressures either time.
No pressures allowed either time. Once again, 0 pressures allowed on 15 pass blocking snaps. Just super, super smooth and in control. And it was against like starters for the Colts as well, picking up stunts, not letting guys past him. And I do think PFF also had him as the second best run blocker along the offensive line in this game. I think only Lester Smith, who played with the third stringers, was better. So, I mean, I would like to see him play left tackle. I would like and Adam Stenavich said, yeah, it's 100% a left tackle competition between Morgan and Walker right now. I feel like they're not going to give him the chance is like the one thing I feel like they're going to be like, well, here's the thing. We need guards more. And like, I'll talk about that in a second, but I just think he looks so good at left tackle right now. I just think I think you got to be like, hey, he does look that good at left tackle where it just might be like, hey, I get you have the best 5 philosophy and your best 5 might be like Walker might be one of your best 5 guys. And so that might mean moving to Morgan to guard, but I just think Morgan's looks so good at guard and he'll probably have to, Morgan's looks so good at tackle and he'll probably have to play tackle for you next year. I think it might just be like, hey, like he just looks that good. You just got to play him at tackle.
And he's looked better at tackle than he did at guard. And
Yes.
he's just winning easy, smooth, and also better run blocker than a lot of reports of
much better run blocker
combo
than
run
Walker.
blocking between him and Banks.
Yeah.
Looking really good at opening holes on the left side.
That's the thing with Rasheed Walker. He's a good pass protector. He's an above average pass protector, but he's not a very good run blocker. And I think we've seen that the past 2 years. They don't run those short yardage stuff as well as they could, in part because Walker doesn't really move guys that much, even though he's a bigger dude. But yeah, I think Morgan's a way better run blocker. I think the pass protections looked really good this offseason. And I think you just got to play him at left tackle. But I don't know. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that their best 5 includes both Walker and Morgan, but it might not. You might not be able to play all the players at their best spots if you do that.
Which they've seemed to they've done that before, I think, at times. So I don't know, but I would like to see Morgan there at left tackle. And then, like I mentioned, part of the reason I think we might not is because let's talk about the interior line depth. I do think it looked better than last week, but it still didn't look good. I thought Sean Ryan did look more comfortable at center. So, that's a step in the right direction. So if you need him as a backup center, you have that. I thought Jacob Monk looked better than preseason game 1. Very low bar. He still wasn't great, but he cleared I'm a complete liability bar. I feel like he was at least decent.
Yeah, that was taken over by somebody else.
Yeah, and then Donovan Jennings was really, really rough. He looked quite out of place, I would say, with the other, because he started the game at left guard. It was Morgan, Donovan Jennings, Sean Ryan, Jacob Monk, and Anthony Belton. I thought he looked a clear tier lower than those 4 other guys, and it looked like they were going after him. And he stayed in the game till late in the game too. I thought he was really rough. Yeah, I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, so that was going against the Colts starting front.
Yes, but then I didn't think he looked great against the backups either.
No, but it seemed like everybody else could hold up
at least decently. Yes,
decently, and he was having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he was, because of the thing. Yeah, the other guys were holding up pretty well, decently, because the second team moved the ball down the field, on their first drive, and
a couple involved third and fourth down conversions, and
involved a couple fourth down conversions, which is a little noisy, but I thought Malik Willis looked pretty good. That was one of my other takeaways. Malik Willis, second team offense, moved the ball pretty well. Which, maybe that says more about the Colts than the Packers, but I don't know. But yeah, so I do think that the interior O-line depth is still a question mark, because Monk looked better. He still didn't look good. Donovan Jennings looked bad. And then you've got some other guys who are super unproven. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before about who do you think their top interior sub is?
It's Morgan. Is the thing. That's why.
Okay.
That's the
who
issue.
Let me rephrase that. Who do you think their number 8 offensive lineman is?
Or
number 9 even.
I don't even know if I believe this, but I almost want to say Kadeem Telford.
Exactly. That's what
I
we were
feel
talking about before.
Is it just Kadeem Telford? I don't know. Because I don't. Monk looked less like a disaster, but he still didn't look good. And I don't think, I'm not here to tell you Kadeem Telford's the savior or anything, but he was okay at times. He has a little tackle guard versatility. I don't know. I don't know who the backup guard is. I think the backup guard is right now it's Jordan Morgan. And so I think if you start Morgan at tackle, that's the question. If you start Morgan at tackle and then one of the interior guys misses time, shuffle. I think it's almost like you're kicking Morgan into guard and you bring Walker in. And so it's and that's a question is that something you really want to do? I don't know. But so that maybe that's why I'm a little worried they're just going to be hey, Morgan, sorry, we're going to stick you at guard, man. But I don't know. I mean,
that was kind of the role I was hoping that John Williams would play.
Yeah.
But he has been out of all of training camp, and so he's not going to be ready. And a player I have not paid any attention to, really watched enough, is Lessida Smith.
Yeah, I mean, he looked fine but he's with the threes. He's really deep on the depth chart. I think that one of the main things for him also is he can play center. So it's there's that because the other guys can't play. Donovan Jennings, can't play center. And then we heard Trey Hill, I think, really struggled at center early in camp as well. So at least you have that with Lessida Smith, but I do think that like the plan for backup center right now would be Ryan and then Monk. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, but anything else in the line you want to talk about, or do you want to talk about something else from this game?
Did I have any more notes? I think that was it for the line.
So what was the next thing you wanted to touch on?
The next thing I was talking a little bit about the running back depth battle. So first we got like obviously two groups of backup running backs. You got the guys who are competing directly behind Jacobs to be on the 53, Wilson, Brooks, and Lloyd behind Jacobs. And you got the battle for what are probably practice squad spots. Maybe they'll both make it between Bonacanda and Johnson.
Yeah, I think Johnson's probably the leader in the clubhouse right now. Bonacanda's probably second, I would guess, if I had to, look at it that way.
Yeah, so just looking at the two groups, so out of the Wilson, Brooks, and Lloyd group, Brooks continues to be the best pass blocker.
Brooks's role on the team is defined. He is going to be the third down guy and special teams and stuff like that.
76.7 PFF pass blocking grade, gave up no pressures, while Wilson gave up one pressure, and I don't think Lloyd got a chance. Mm-hmm. But Brooks only had 2 carries for 5 yards, and Emmanuel Wilson had 5 carries for 33 yards.
Wilson's the best runner of the three of them. Like that, it's such a weird problem.
Lloyd had bad holes to run through at the beginning. He only had 15 yards and 5 carries, but he was trying to make stuff against the Colts starters. And he turned 0 into 5, 0 into 4.
Yeah,
a couple times, kind of runs. And then Lloyd had the most targets with 4, but he only had the one catch for. Mm-hmm. But both Wilson and Lloyd had a catch go for more than 30 yards.
Yes,
each.
Yeah, and it's fair to say that Lloyd played against the starters more, and Wilson got to see more of the twos. So there is that. Yeah. But I do still think Wilson's underrated. Yeah, but we know what Brooks is.
Yeah.
I think Brooks
it's just. Yeah. I think we know. So my main takeaway is they're keeping all of them.
I think
because they do different things.
I think in a world where Lloyd was fully healthy and you could guarantee he'd be fully healthy, I think they maybe let Wilson go. But given the fact that they can't, I don't think it's reasonable to count on Lloyd right now. Not that it's his fault or anything, but just that you can't guarantee that he's going to be available. I think you have to keep all 4.
Yeah, I was at first thinking on Sunday after LaFleur's announcement that Lloyd is going to be starting on IR and then miss the first 4 weeks. And so then they would keep 3. It would be, Wilson, Brooks, and Jacobs and Lloyd. But now he's starting to do some stuff on the side.
Yeah, so maybe
they wouldn't keep him out that long, so they'll keep him on the 53.
Yeah. But I think at this point you're keeping 4 running backs is kind of my takeaway. And I would say Amar Johnson on the practice squad and maybe also Benacanda. But I do feel like it's I don't think Benacanda's looked irreplaceable, where it's hey, we have to get this guy in the practice squad. I think you could find that kind of production other places too, I guess is my takeaway.
Yeah. Johnson did better in pass pro as sort of the backup.
Johnson's solid. Johnson looks really solid out there. I feel like he's a good player.
2 reps, didn't give up a pressure.
He's got some explosiveness to him. He seems to be pretty well-rounded in terms of being also able to contribute on third down. I think he would be a home run practice squad guy. I would not want to see him not make it back to the practice squad. I'd be a little disappointed.
Yeah. But Abanikanda had more carries and more yards, but that's a little bit situational, I think. And they both got a touchdown. It's my guess that they'll end up with both on the practice squad.
I could see that.
I don't think you typically have to worry about running backs getting poached off the waiver wire.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder if they even bother to bring a Abanikanda on the practice squad. That's my question.
That's the thing. They may choose to go elsewhere as well. Once they don't, you get past waiver wire, doesn't mean they're necessarily going to come back. Or they might decide they'd like a running back from another team and sign him to the practice squad.
Yeah, exactly. My last takeaway from this game was just looking at the linebacker depth. So Cooper and Walker and McDuffie all did not play. So I think that pretty much cements McDuffie as linebacker 3. There was some talk about maybe Simmons pushing for that spot. I think that's totally off the table now. Partially because
we've seen it.
Yeah, mostly because Simmons does not look good. And Simmons played well deep into this game. And I think you could argue that he looked the worst of the 4 linebackers who actually even played. He had a nice stop at the goal line, which was a really nice play. But other than that, he looked kind of lost. I think Hopper's looked better than him in the preseason, although Hopper did struggle a little bit with play action. Dusty Evely posted a clip of him just like taking like 3 or 4 false steps on a play action, and then turning around and being like, "Oh shoot, I was supposed to be dropping into coverage."
Super aggressive, charging in there full speed.
But I do think he's looked better than Simmons. I think that Welch has looked better than Simmons on defense and like is giving similar amounts on special teams, and I think he's on all 4 special teams units. I'm not sure if Simmons is. And then Jamon Johnson didn't have a great first preseason game, but looked better in this one. And like, I get he's going against the 3rd stringer, so maybe that's like a bit of who you're playing against. But I think there's an argument to be had that Simmons has looked the worst of the linebacker room, which is a little disappointing given how excited we were about him, right?
Yeah, because in the practices, he's been looking really good, and he's been getting a lot of reps as like the 3rd linebacker. But I would say he's been outplayed by Welch and maybe even by Jamon Johnson. And Jamon Johnson and Welch have both also been getting a lot of reps on special teams, which was part of what Simmons' calling card was supposed to be, what he was actually good at last year. And they've been, Welch and Johnson have been playing actually more snaps on teams in this last game than Simmons did. And Welch in every one of them. I think Simmons, there was maybe one of the teams he didn't play on. I can't remember how many of the different teams Johnson got onto, but they're able to contribute there as well. So then you wonder, like, hey, will Simmons?
What role is Simmons filling? If they're playing more on special teams and they're looking better on defense, like
2 weeks ago, I thought, oh, Simmons is a lock.
Yeah, and then he played.
I was going to say, then the actual game started.
Yeah, because the thing is, the case for Simmons is more dynamic, just a way more dynamic athlete. You're able to do some like weird like 4-3 into 3-4 stuff with him because he has the build to be a pseudo edge rusher. He can play a little bit more. He theoretically can play more coverage, even though it hasn't gone that well for him at the NFL level. I feel like he's still just more of an idea than a player. Like, they have these ideas of how to use him as like an edge rusher. They have these ideas that he can play like some coverage stuff, and then like the games happen and it's like, it just doesn't click for him. I don't know.
This
Who is this? Is this go ahead.
Oh, does it ever work out for them?
No. These people somehow delude themselves into thinking it'll work for them, but it might work for us. No, yeah, it is. It is definitely the Tobias Funk Arrested Development, where it's like he's such a tantalizing idea of a player, and it just hasn't. We're seeing how it has looked, I think, at every other stop along the way for him, where it's like, okay, good player, or like good idea of a player. The coaching staff likes him. He's got special teams like ability. He's a super dynamic athlete. He can be used in all these different ways. And it's like, and then there's just one problem, Happy. He's just not any good. Like, it's tough.
So you called him a tantalizing prospect athlete.
With the myth of Tantalus,
so the
whole point.
I just recently heard a coach say this too. His upside potential is tantalizing. You know what that means? It means you can never get it.
Yes,
that's what the story is about. Tantalus. Yep. He can never reach the water or the fruit.
Yep.
So when you say something tantalizing, it's never achieved.
Yes, it's a very fitting description.
You keep using that word. It does not mean what you think it means.
But yeah, so it's very fitting for him. But yeah, so I that was just my takeaway on the linebacker depth. Hopper looks better. I think he was a lock to make the team anyways as a second-year, third-round pick. But I think I would take either Welch or not another linebacker, but probably going to take Welch is who I would take, but maybe they'll just take Simmons. But any final thoughts from this game?
I would just say there's the sort of the last spot for wide receiver and tight end battles. I was like Fitzpatrick
locked for 3,
have it locked like way ahead of Sims and Lumpkin and Swinson. Mm-hmm. And then my guess right now is that Heath has been moving ahead of Hardman and we talked about this once, like he's kind of the last blocking wide receiver left standing at the moment.
At the moment, yeah. Yeah, and
though Hardman's game 2 was not as disastrous as game 1 in the preseason.
But low bar again, just like the Monk.
That was about
very low bar. Yeah. But anyway, since we were talking about, some of these depth battles, I think let's transition to talking about our 53-man roster projections and who we're going to, have make it. I don't think we could just read them off here, but I think maybe it's more productive to talk about like what we have different, because we both have 2 quarterbacks. We both have 4 running backs, right? We both have 3 tight ends. Kicker, punter, long snapper is pretty much set. I think we both have 60 linemen with the obvious ones plus Stackhouse, right?
Yep.
We both have 5 edge rushers with the obvious ones, Enigbari, Cox, and then Sorrell. And then you had, if Sorrell missed, you'd have Mosby. I think we both have 5 linebackers. Is that correct?
Yes.
I had Welch. Did you have Simmons?
No, I have Welch beating out Simmons for the last spot.
We both have Welch. I think we both have 5 corners. I think we both had Ballantyne as the 5th one.
Yeah, if you're counting Melton as 4, yeah.
Yeah, and then we both had 5 safeties.
So that's the one I would struggle a little bit like. I kind of like King as well, maybe, but that's hard.
Okay. Well,
that's where it becomes a little tricky. But I went with Ballantyne as well because of the history.
Yeah, and then we both have 5 safeties with Oladapo as the last one.
If you have Anderson ready ahead of Oladapo, which might not be the case anymore. Oladapo's been improving.
Yeah, but Zane Anderson's looked good when he's played, and he was ahead of Oladapo in the first preseason game. I guess it just depends on if he was able to leapfrog him while Anderson missed time. But so I think that means we agree on all those spots, but we maybe have different numbers at wide receiver, offensive line, and then we can talk a little bit about corner as well. But I think we kind of did when we were talking about the Colts game that we both kind of think Ballantyne, just because he's played more in the league, gives you a little bit more stability at that 5th spot. But I think wide receiver and offensive line are probably the 2 spots that we are most different at. So let's talk about the offensive line first. You had them taking 9 offensive linemen. I had them taking 10. I put Lecitus Smith as a placeholder because he's a little more versatile along the interior and they have more questions along the interior. So we had the first obvious 8, I think, Monk, and then I had Kadeem Telfort and Lecitus Smith as 9 and 10. Who'd you have as 9?
I had Telfort as 9. I did not have Lecitus Smith on there.
And you had no 10th guy, right?
I had no 10th guy, though I do have a note, like, for example, if like Lloyd starts off on IR, then I think that leaves room for a 10th O-lineman.
Well, so let's talk about that 10th O-lineman spot, because I will say, I went back in the last 3 years, I went on Our Lads and looked at what the depth chart looked like in September. The last 3 years, they have kept 10 offensive linemen. So I think that is something to keep in mind, is they've historically kept 10. 9 would be pretty low for them. And I think John Williams is going to start the year on PUP. And I don't think it necessarily has to be Lecitus Smith. I mean, Donovan Jennings has been playing ahead of him, even if he hasn't played well. There are other players there. They could still add a guy, is also definitely on the table. They have Trey Hill's there, Cooper's there. They have some other players there too. But I do just think they're going to keep a 10th guy. And then I actually only have them keeping 5 receivers, and not keeping Heath and trying to get one of those guys back to the practice squad. But I guess you had 9 offensive linemen and 6 receivers, right?
Right. So I have Heath on there and no Lecitus Smith. This is a change from what I had done for the first 3 months of the offseason, where I had 10 offensive linemen, but those 9 and 10 guys were Jennings and Williams. Mm-hmm. And so, then I probably had Glover as the next guy after that. Yeah,
I think they're missing Glover right now, which you never thought I'd say after the Eagles game. But
Williams has been out for all the year so far, so we don't know what he is yet. And he's not going to be as well,
probably
prepared
not
by the time he comes back. Jennings has looked a little bit out of his depth. I liked his traits. I think is mostly what I, kind of going for there. He's struggled as he's gotten on the field.
Just hasn't looked good. Yeah.
So if I was going to put a 10th guy, though, this is what I said. I haven't really watched Lecitus Smith enough.
I would probably put Donovan Jennings. I just wanted to do something kind of wild for my last O-line spot. But Donovan Jennings will probably be the guy if it's 10.
Yeah, so for me, if, say, a space opens up where they decide not to keep Heath and they put him on they hope to get him to the practice squad, or Lloyd has to start on IR, so a spot opens up, then they get a 10th. So then I'm thinking I would probably go with Jennings.
It's probably Jennings. I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I do think, though, looking at the receivers, because like I said, I kept 5, you kept 6. I do think with all the injuries, you maybe do have to keep 6, but I would not remove an offensive lineman for that. I think Stackhouse would not make the team in that scenario. I think they would see if they can get him, because it's not like he's been crazy impressive in the preseason games. He's had a couple moments, but I don't think he's looked like a guy that you like. It's like, okay, we can't live without this guy. Because I think Wooden has looked good enough at nose tackle where you feel okay about your depth there, maybe better than you did before the training camp started, where you're like, okay, we need one of Stackhouse and Brinson to play well, or like we just don't have a guy like as a space eater in the middle. I think Wooden has looked good enough there where you can live without Stackhouse. And so I think if I was like adding Malik Heath to the roster, which I think the more receivers go down, I think the more you maybe have to think about doing that. I think I would put Heath on and Stackhouse off. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, possibly, because it seems like Brinson has been able to do more than Stackhouse. So Stackhouse has some good run D reps, but I think
they drafted Brinson. I think they clearly liked Brinson
from the beginning.
Yeah,
you could say like two rounds ahead of him, as in 6 rounder versus round. We'll call it 8.
Yeah, well, like 50. They had like 50 picks ahead of him. Yeah, like so they had a pretty decent sized gap, between where they had Brinson and Stackhouse probably. Yeah.
But I think if you have like the guys who we have on the roster and they're not necessarily ready to go, like Reed or Wicks, let's say Wicks isn't ready to go and Reed's not ready to go in week 1, then they're keeping Heath.
They're keeping Heath
100%. Those guys don't even have to go on IR. If they're just not ready week 1, they're keeping Heath.
Yes, and I think the more I think about it, I think I would have Heath on and Stackhouse off, and instead of having Lester Smith, I'd have Donovan Jennings just because the coaching staff seems to have him ahead. I will say, I was going to say, for the receivers, I think there's an argument to be made that Hicks and Shepard and Cornelius Johnson have looked good enough where, like, if you had to elevate one of those guys for week 1 to be your 5th receiver, it would maybe be okay.
Yeah, I have both Cornelius Johnson and Nayor on my practice squad.
Nair's another one who's looked good in camp as like a depth receiver where like you could have him on the practice squad and you elevate him for week 1 if those guys still aren't ready. And they haven't done any reps with the 1, so obviously it's a projection, but they would be like the depth guy, the 4th, 5th guy to rotate in to like get a couple snaps here and there. So yeah, I just think they've looked good enough where it's like they're decent emergency options, I guess is kind of how I'm looking at those two for like only keeping 5 or 6 receivers. I don't think you need to keep 7. Right now, I don't have Hardman making the team. I don't think he's done enough. Yeah.
And then in terms of, Stackhouse versus, say, Donovan Jennings, if you're talking about like your 6th D tackle versus your 10th O lineman.
I just think the 10th O lineman is more valuable.
Likely to make it to the practice squad?
I think the D lineman. I think offensive line is such a scarcity.
You think it's that much scarcity for anybody who...
I think teams are starved for offensive line depth. Like they'll kick the tires on anyone.
Just make sure that the only, video clips on the internet
are the ones of him getting smoked.
Everything besides Jennings getting smoked in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, it was really rough
everything
for him.
Else.
But I do think I was maybe jumping the gun a little bit on Lester Smith because like I was maybe a bit of a prisoner of the moment of watching those snaps with Donovan Jennings. Just could not block any one of the starters.
I haven't paid attention to him, so I don't know how he's looked.
I mean, it's been against backups, so he's looked good, but it's been against like third stringers. So it's like, okay, would Donovan Jennings look that good against third stringers? Probably. So
clearly, they felt better about Donovan Jennings than Lester Smith or Trey Hill or whoever, or Tyler,
et cetera. Yeah, down the line. But I do think Kadeem Telford has looked better than Donovan Jennings by a good chunk, and he's got tackle guard versatility. So I feel like he should be a borderline roster lock as much as like an 8th, 9th, 10th guy can be. Like I think there's an argument to be had that Telford's maybe looked better than Monk as well, but it seems like the coaching staff has Monk higher than them. And it also seems like, last year Telford was getting a lot of tackle and guard reps. This year it's been all tackle. He's getting like almost no work at guard, it seems like.
Telford, well, he played guard in the last game.
Oh, he did? Okay, because he came in at left tackle for Morgan initially. And then
that's not right. No, he played 12 snaps at left tackle.
Yeah.
Even though they list him as left guard, you look at his snap counts. No,
yeah, it's all snaps. Left tackle, right? Because he came in for Morgan. Tackle. Yeah,
all 12 snaps at left tackle. He had a good pass blocking grade, 81.
I mean, he also did the lining up in the wrong spot. So it's like, okay, maybe the refs just really wanted to call that day. Who knows?
I think that there's a little bit of that actually. There's been
A little emphasis of that.
A little emphasis in the preseason on getting everybody lined up.
Yeah. So maybe a little. The refs will be a little maybe less overeager on that in the preseason or on the regular season. We'll see.
They'll start ignoring where everybody's lining up once they start doing the tush push again.
But I do think the most interesting spots to watch for this 53-man roster projection is the offensive line, who the 9th, 10th guys are. I think the 9th should be Telford, in my opinion, and then the 10th is really up for grabs. I think that running back is interesting, but I do think they're going to keep 4. Wide receiver is interesting, just how many they keep, who the 6th guy is. But I think if I had to do it today, it'd be Malik Heath would be the 6th, and then they wouldn't keep Stackhouse. And then corner 5, I think is interesting. But anything else on the 53-man roster you wanted to touch on? I just wanted to get this out here because I think we both have, just to look at it really quick, Love, Willis, Jacobs, Wilson, Lloyd, Brooks, Dobbs, Golden, Reed, Wicks, Williams, and then Heath, Kraft, Musgrave, Fitzpatrick, the 5 starting line plus Morgan, Belton, Monk, Telford, and then a 10th guy. The specialists that we all know, Clark, Wyatt, Wooden, Brooks, Brinson, and then maybe Stackhouse, Gary Van Ness, Eningbare, Cox, Sorrell, Walker, Cooper, McDuffie, Hopper, Welch, Nixon, Hobbs, Valentine, Melton, Ballantyne, and then McKinney, Williams, Bullard, Anderson, Oladapo. But yeah, any other bits of the 53-man roster that you kind of wavered on or waffled on while you were putting it together? Or
it actually was kind of easy.
Right, it felt easier than other years, didn't it?
Easier than yeah. The one thing I should add, I in terms of Telford, I had he had 12 snaps at left tackle in game 1, but then he had both left tackle and right tackle in game 2.
But only tackle is like
still only tackle. Even though the position they list him as left guard, even in the game list is like all tackle, left tackle and right tackle.
Yeah, but I'm a little surprised by that because I feel like
good pass blocking both games.
And I'm a little surprised by that because I feel like he didn't look great at guard, but he looked like passable. I feel like he looked better at guard than Jennings or Monk have. So it's like, and they need the interior depth, I feel like, more than they need the tackle depth right now. I don't know.
But
I guess
his build.
He is built like a tackle.
Yes.
Yeah.
6'8".
Yeah. Big guard. Big guard.
Is a very, very tall guard. How tall is Love? How tall do you have to be as a quarterback to throw over a 6'8", 6'8" guard?
Just like we're just
gonna.
This
is not center.
That's true. He's like, we're just gonna need you to like squat a lot. Like we're gonna need you to be like bent over for most of these reps. But yeah, I did feel like the 53-man roster was a little less. I had to like haggle a little less with it. And I really just felt like that. The 6th wide receiver spot, the 10th O-line spot, and then the 5th linebacker spot and the 5th corner spot were the only ones where I was like really thinking about it. Oh, and whether or not to keep Stackhouse. But anyway,
yeah, that last corner spot, I guess I did struggle with that one a little bit. I mean, whether to go.
But I do feel like Ballantyne,
King, or
Haddon or Robinson. Yeah,
I feel like Haddon has fallen behind a little bit. Just he's struggled since.
But he did. Back. But he did start when for this preseason game.
They had him ahead of King.
That's like the main argument for him is like he was out there first. But anyway,
part of it is we're guessing not just what we see in the field, but
what the coaching staff thinks. Yeah,
what the coaching staff thinks.
Yeah, but anyway. So that has been our breakdown of the game against the Colts and talking a little bit about what we think the 53-man roster will be. Next week, we will know the 53-man roster and we'll have another game to talk about. So we'll be talking about that and also the joint practices with the Seahawks this coming week. So we'll talk about that as well. But anyway, thank you again for listening. This has been the Father Son Packers podcast. If you like what you heard, leave a comment, subscribe, whether that's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, tell a friend, leave a comment. Leave a review.
Tell an enemy.
Tell an enemy. Tell an acquaintance. But follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer for updates on roster moves, injury reports, when we have new episodes out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you again for listening, though, and we'll be back to 2 episodes a week in a couple of weeks when the season officially starts. I will be doing pre and post game. So
the clock is ticking to double time work.
Yeah. So keep the dial tuned here, and until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.